Once again,
and we're back.
we're here.
Episode 11.
Yes.
Into the double digits. We are raising the bar substantially, and I'm already screwing it over.
Well, I mean, are you saying that we're now shooting for 20 episodes or something?
Go 10 at a time, and then once we reach 100, we go for 200.
Right, and then we sign a contract with Disney.
Oh,
You
naturally.
probably want to turn this into a motion picture. I'm thinking. I'm blue skying a little bit.
Yeah,
here.
a little bit.
Right.
It feels a little idealistic, but you know.
And you know that the title of the movie has to be inherently...
Human.
Yeah.
Just like the title of this podcast.
The podcast. That's the marketing hook
Yeah.
that they are going to use.
It's the brand name.
It is. Yeah. Inevitably. We have to bow to circumstance and cliche and marketing and all of that. We'll learn all that.
Oh yeah, in time, once we reach about 50 or so. But I mean, if we shoot anything to Netflix will take anything.
I can confirm that. I don't remember the name of the show, but I started watching something yesterday about a bomber on a train in London, and an off-duty police officer saved the day by talking this Muslim woman who had a bomb strapped around her waist to not press the button, but allow the police to remove the bomb. And it was good. That first episode was amazing.
Is that The Rookie?
No.
No?
I know, unfortunately.
I've seen...
I don't remember the name.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't very good because the second episode, I thought, fell apart. That was my opinion. But
So they nailed it with the pilot and then just...
they did. I guess it was the pilot. Yes, absolutely. We were not planning ahead when we pressed the button to start this podcast. So, in fact, I guess it's really true that we do not know what this episode is about.
Do we know what any episode is about? People, funny
Okay.
you say that.
Yeah.
People have asked, or I tell people like, oh, a new episode of the podcast is out. Like,
Yeah. And
which
their eyes light up
A little
with
bit.
excitement.
Oh yeah, it's just pure.
I can
pure fire and fireworks.
see it in my mind's eye right now.
But they always ask, "Oh, what's it about?" And I just kind of stare at them blankly and just say,
It's about humanity.
"It's stuff.
It's about human nature, kinda, I would have to say.
It's about who we are. It's the human condition."
Mm-hmm. And I think we're demonstrating we have confidence in that by not planning ahead.
Oh,
By
yeah.
Not really working it out and having an outline and then going through whatever the headings are. And then we know we're done when we get to the last page and say, yep, that's our podcast for today, people. Thank you so much.
Call it good.
Yeah.
No, we make this up for 45 minutes and then we say goodbye, we turn it off, and then, oh God.
Yeah.
We
did
take a
it.
couple
I
good
don't
big
know.
deep breaths like,
I don't know how we did it this time.
Did you think that was going to happen? Because I didn't think that was going to
Yeah,
happen,
no,
but it keeps on happening.
typically,
so I guess we just keep on.
They're really good. I'm reading a book right now called How to Change Your Mind, and just to show how ill-prepared I am, I don't remember the name of the writer. But one thing that he said, it's about actually getting high on psilocybin and other hallucinogens, but mainly psilocybin.
What is psilocybin?
Psilocybin is a mushroom extract. It's a chemical found in a certain kind of mushroom, and it has been used for sacramental purposes for thousands of years, and it's coming back into vogue. There's a lot of research being done on it right now, and what it purports to do is open a person's mind to something greater than ourselves, something that almost could be interpreted as God or infinity. It's really quite a powerful experience, but the one time I had psilocybin, and I think I had a lot of it because somebody gave me a whole plastic bag of these mushrooms. This was back in the 70s. I went to the beach, which was a good idea because I like the beach. So I didn't have a bad trip, but I ate all the mushrooms at once. And I was high for something in the neighborhood, I guess, of 8 hours or so.
Outstanding.
I'm not kidding. But I didn't hallucinate at all.
Your mind didn't put anything where it didn't.
It didn't superimpose extravagant colors. It didn't show me a pathway into the stars. The trees didn't talk to me. But it was nevertheless a beautiful experience. I think I told you a little bit about it. I was walking along the shore and I saw a dead seagull. Now,
Oh, I do remember.
yeah, I told you that. And one could imagine that being extraordinarily high and sort of out of control of my mind, that seeing any kind of rotting corpse would send you on some downhill spiral. But it didn't do that at all. What happened is it made me think about the cycle of life and how this seagull had happened to have its wings still spread as it was half burrowed in the sand. And I just thought, wow, it's flying back into its natural elements. It was
That's fascinating. I
so
love that.
profound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it took a natural hallucinogen, I guess, this natural opening in your mind
Yeah.
to come to that conclusion.
I think so.
It's weird because you look at this carcass, I guess,
Yeah.
of this bird, and in one sense, it's the end of a line in this bird's life.
Right.
But as that dies, it creates a brand new line of life, you know?
It does.
So-
it does.
And then ultimately, yeah, that goes into the whole circle of life thing. And it's interesting to kind of grasp that there isn't really an end to anything. It's
No.
just a constant recycling of the same things over and over again.
According to this book, though, most of the people that have high-dose psilocybin trips do experience something much more attuned with divinity and religion and infinity. Yeah, I did have sort of that low-end version of that,
Yeah.
the cycle of life, but what many people report is that they themselves understand that their death is not
Inevitable.
as significant, not as significant as they might have thought. In fact, it's working very well with cancer patients who've been given a terminal diagnosis. They accept and understand their demise for some reason after having
Having had this trip.
psilocybin.
I guess, so I'm just going to go out and say it. I've done shrooms personally as well.
Oh, and they probably were psilocybin because I mean that.
I can't imagine them being anything else.
Yeah, right.
And so, well, now this is recorded and we're putting out, so
But
the world
this
knows.
was early in your career, and
Yeah, this was about last year.
okay,
This
all
was
right.
this summer.
Yeah, all right.
But I understand the concept of infinity that you're trying to describe here, because I didn't find anything divine. I didn't find any
You
deity.
didn't either. You're like me in that way.
No, I didn't become in any way religious from it.
No transcendental,
Not
being carried away kind of
so.
trip.
Here's what happened.
Yeah.
So I was in Willamina with a couple buddies of mine, and
Willamina's really gorgeous.
beautiful area.
Man, I love
And we're on my buddy's property. He had a bunch of acres and
it.
this
Those
forest.
rolling hills.
Yeah.
Farm fields.
That's exactly
Ah.
And so I was walking with my bud, and I won't say names, but I'm walking with him, and all of a sudden, I'm talking with him, and I can feel feel the shrooms starting to hit me because I'm
Yeah.
talking to him. All right, do you think we should go up this way, or should we go down? And my whole- everything just melts.
Well, your brain slowed down, or were you still in that place, or did the scene change in some way for you?
So that's where everything kind of comes in because I lost all motor function. Completely.
So you
in-
dropped in place.
Just down to the
Bam,
ground.
down.
Yep.
Okay.
It was. He got a little scared, but I was like,
You did?
just leave me because I just fell all of a sudden, and we're both on shrooms, so like,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I was perfectly fine, and I just said, "You go on ahead. I'm gonna talk to this grasshopper." So I talked to a grasshopper for about 15 minutes.
That's interesting.
And watched the grass move. It was fascinating stuff. And then I turn onto my back,
Yeah.
and I'm looking up into the sky, and this is where I find infinity.
Whoa!
Yes. Mm-hmm. So, are you aware of what the Fibonacci sequence is?
It has to do with the way cliffs form, and I don't really know. I think it has to do, it can be used graphically, though. It
Yeah.
can form cliffs and landscapes. But no, explain it. I don't know it at all.
So, for those listening, there's a whiteboard in the study room that we're in right now. So I'm drawing it up. You might have to look it up if I don't describe it well enough for y'all. So essentially, the Fibonacci sequence is a naturally occurring spiral formation
Oh,
that is
okay.
mathematically proven to exist in many things, and it looks kind of like this.
All right, he's drawing on the whiteboard with a red felt tip
Dry
spiral
erase,
that looks
yeah.
like a galaxy or something.
Yeah,
What did you call the pen?
the dry erase marker.
Dry erase? Okay.
But that's kind of what the Fibonacci sequence is.
All
And
right.
what I saw in the clouds were the clouds changing and the sky shifting into this sequence. And the fascinating part about this sequence is that it's infinite and that it constantly is moving in and out of itself.
So you're lying on your back, looking up at the, was it a cloudy day, sunny day?
It was blue skies, there were a couple clouds, sunny.
So this spiral effect was made up of clouds, or was there some other element in the blueness of the sky that suggested spiral and open the heavens up? What are you saying?
So the clouds that were in my vision
Yeah.
molded with the blue skies and created this sequence. They shifted and formed into this multicolored, almost trans-dimensional Fibonacci sequence of infinity.
Okay, you
And
watched that happen.
I watched it all happen from beginning to end, and I came to about 20 minutes later feeling completely new, as if I had lived through infinity and came back out on the other side.
Oh, man.
It was incredible. And then it happened again, which was awesome. It kind of spiked up and down.
So, let's say you came down from the first trip, you're still lying there on the ground, and you're still looking up at the sky,
Yeah.
and it opened up again. Well, was it like a telescope and you could see farther out into space?
No, it was more like looking through a kaleidoscope.
Okay.
It was like looking through one of those, and then not only do you see it visually, but you see it physically. And then
I don't think I understand that.
you feel what you're seeing.
Okay, that must be exhilarating.
Oh, it's euphoric. And then, oh man, it was quite the time. Truly. I had to get up though eventually because there were vultures starting to circle me. Because
Real, honest to God, non-Fibonacci.
nope. These were not hallucinations. These were
were
actual
real
legit
vultures.
birds thinking that I was a carcass on the ground because I was laying motionless for so long.
Where was your friend during all this? Was
He was off wandering.
Okay,
Yeah.
and he had, maybe you don't know what kind of experience he had, but
We talked about it later. He had a very similar experience. He became the character we now call the Mountain Man.
okay. In other
Yeah.
words, this is not really a part of his persona, except that it appeared and he understood it to be part of himself. At that point.
Yeah. So the way it worked was that his mind exited the physical plane here that we
That's
know.
heavy.
Yeah, right.
So he went to another landscape,
Yeah,
another place
and-
completely.
Entirely different place completely.
Wow.
Um,
No longer Willamina.
No.
Not at all.
not in this, not in reality, anyways.
Yeah.
And so, and he transformed to be this character that we call the Mountain Man because he had the physical stature.
He does, in fact, have that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, and he was walking around this wooded area. So the landscape, the stature, and then the physical appearance, and then what he did around that all came together and to create this character.
Because if I'm thinking about a mountain man, I can't imagine exactly what behaviors would accrue to a person that I'd call the mountain man. So what did he do or think? How did he become that mountain man?
So he became essentially not a spiritual guide, but he became the wise man of the hills, is how I'm going to describe it. Because as I'm going nuts here, I rolled down a hill.
Seeing Fibonacci sequences.
Every-
You actually didn't mention the rolling down a hill before.
Oh, because that was only the
later?
first hour.
Oh, all right. So go ahead. Explain the mountain man, then you got to go to that other part.
to the hill.
Yeah.
And so he was just kind of there physically within his own trip
Yeah.
to guide me along my way as he was on his own path.
So he was engaging you at some point,
several times, yeah,
and you found him to be extraordinarily wise in that moment?
absolutely.
And you would say to this day that whatever it was he said strikes you as wisdom.
Yeah,
Really?
but of course, when you're high on shrooms, that's a little bit of a biased statement because who knows what he was actually saying.
So
I
you don't
remember.
literally remember his words?
Not in the slightest.
Okay.
No.
All right. But they struck you as centering to you in some way and very meaningful.
Oh, absolutely. Because he's a great friend of mine.
Yeah.
And so
That's really cool.
hearing his wisdom in this time where my mind is far more open to everything
Yeah.
is a really invigorating experience.
That's
if anything.
nice to give that to someone, and I think in a way you are giving it to them because it's trust. A lot of that's
Absolutely.
trust.
Yeah. And so that was the Mountain Man. Also, he had his hair flowing back. He had it down, so it's
Yeah.
just this long brown hair. He had a knife on him. So he had the big like Bowie knife on him. So that was
Okay.
attached to his belt.
So he was kind of dressed for the part anyway. Yeah.
He had the Carhartts and the flannel, and then he had a walking
Gotta have
stick.
Carhartt.
Yeah, it was pinnacle, truly and fully. A beautiful sight.
But he didn't prevent you from rolling down a hill.
Because I chose to roll down that hill.
Okay, you're now back in, well, you never left Willamina.
No.
You did. All right, so now are you like on farmland, like a grassy meadow with a
Yeah.
slope or something?
Exactly that. So we're in kind of the back area of of our other buddy's land.
That is amazing. I love that area so much,
It is.
man.
He's trying to convince us to live down there.
If people don't know where Willamina is, it's just west of Sheridan out in the Coast Range, right? Or am I thinking of some other place?
That might be different. Willamina, I think, is south of Salem.
Oh, all right, strike that. And now, the harps begin to play,
again. Oh,
and
how
I have to
beautiful.
stop my phone. Well, all right. I guess one of us is wrong, but I really don't know. But it sounds like the land is the same, and that could make a lot of sense. This is near the Coast Range. I mean, it's the Willamette Valley, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, where I was would be best described as rural farmland,
Yeah, exactly.
but with forest.
You mean Douglas fir type forest?
Yeah, it was
Because-
a pine tree forest. Yeah.
All right, because what I'm thinking of is land that has a lot of deciduous trees and a lot of farmland, but rolling hills into the distance. Anyway,
That sums it
wherever
up.
this is, you walked to a steep pitch on a slope. Walk me through this. What happened to you?
So as soon as I came out of the second coming of life that I had with the Fibonacci sequence and everything, I found my buddy, and I was like, all right, where are we going next, Mountain Man? Like, what's our next path? And he was like, well, let's go down here. And it was down the hill, and I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to roll down this hill. Because you want to know why? Because I can.
Right.
And so I did. And I rolled down the hill the entire time. And during that rolling, I lost my water bottle and my hat. And fortunately, my buddy was there. He picked him up. He got him back to me. So that's also why he was a very nice guide at this time. But I get down to the bottom of the hill. I stand back up. I get my items that he picked up for me. And then... this part was fun. Oh, you were right. It is by Sheridan.
Well, that's so. You literally were in Willamina.
Yes.
All right. So, it is a fact that Willamina is just west of Sheridan. Just so people know, and that is out past Hillsborough, out on the way to the coast. Anyway,
It's a ways away.
it's a ways away.
And so I started walking down this path, and I lost all motor function again, because that's just how it worked during that trip. And I collapsed onto the side of a hill, and the way that the dirt and the grass and everything was chipped out of the side, when I fell into it, it felt like it was perfectly molded for me to be there at that exact moment.
Okay.
It was the most comfortable I'd ever been. And it was weird because I was probably, laying with my arms splayed out, and my head's back, and my legs are out. But it felt like this just random spot on this random path in this random town had this made perfectly for me to be in it
Yeah,
at this
so
time.
you felt like accepted by the world. Man.
Exactly that. I
Yeah.
felt like I was being retaken by the earth that had, birthed me or whatever. And I saw I hallucinated again. It was fantastic. I felt like I lived my whole life, and I died, and I was reborn, and I did that
Wow.
a couple times. It was incredible.
Yeah, mine was just a lot more down to earth than that. But you had more to say.
There's a lot that happened on this trip.
So it was a long period of time, 8 hours plus, maybe.
No, I think it was only about 4 or 5.
Okay.
Yeah, but my favorite part is this next part, where I stood up, and because I was reborn, I thought, why would I need these clothes? And I got completely naked.
And this is far from the nearest main
Road?
street.
Yes.
Okay.
So
good.
I know I was pretty secluded, and I just got completely nude.
And
I
went
was standing-
running, distributing flower petals through the landscape.
That
or
certainly
something.
is what it felt like.
All right.
But I stood there, and the wind was blowing, so my hair was down.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it was going,
yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
just standing there, and the sun's shining, and
Wow.
my buddy walks over the hill. He sees me, and he just says, "Okay, I guess." And I beckon him to join me, and said, "Join me in nudity."
Yes, but
He was opposed to it, and he said, "I'll let you continue that."
that's your choice, and I support it 100%. But I'm on a different trip. Mm-hmm. Kind
He
of
was the
thing.
mountain man, and so he later told me that I looked like a Renaissance painting.
Oh, well, that's kind of a really nice compliment.
Yeah. And so the reason he said I looked like one is because the background was just these rolling hills.
Yeah.
I had all my clothes in a pile. I was standing there triumphantly in the nude with my hair flowing and the sun coming down. It's like, this
Right.
is almost biblical.
Yeah, I think back in the Renaissance, some of the more proficient painters were working with light and the way skin glows when the light hits it,
Yeah.
because it goes down several layers and then it radiates in a sense from somewhere almost inside, and you can create that illusion on the canvas too. So there you go. That's what you looked like, evidently.
Apparently.
Too bad he didn't have his camera out. You
Probably best that.
Well, I don't know,
didn't have
man.
a
I mean,
picture
I
of
would
it.
think that a peak moment like that, you would probably treasure
The
the
feeling?
proof that it. Well, just a reminder. Just a photograph would forever and a day. When you're 80 years old, you'd say, "Yes, there I was on that day." You probably still remember it in detail. I mean, I suspect you will. I remember my psilocybin experience, even though it wasn't anywhere near as dramatic. The one other thing that happened to me was I was walking near a little town, and there's a bay, and there's a lot of rock that was there to prevent erosion, and in the rocks were a lot of little crabs, and there was this older woman with her grandson, and she said to the little boy, "Better watch it or they'll bite you," meaning the little crabs.
Yeah.
Well, in that simple sentence, I heard cosmic love for that little boy from that woman. I mean, it was such a pleasurable experience to me to know that that kind of love is in the world.
Yeah. So simple and untainted by
Oh, yeah.
anything. And just by saying one thing, showing care in some way. But
Right.
also, I guess, because obviously crabs aren't going to bite you, right?
Not
they're gonna snip at you.
likely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you say this to a kid like, "Oh, watch out or else they'll bite you." Not only A, are you showing concern and worry that like I want this kid to be safe, but you're also allowing some kind of, I guess not ignorance, but innocence or joke kind of thing by letting them believe that a crab will bite you.
I got that whatever else was going on. She did not hold anything else in greater value
Than this
than
kid.
she did this little boy.
That is so beautiful.
It really is.
I wish.
And you know, if I'd been walking by smoking a Marlboro, I don't really smoke, but I mean, if I was just walking by without the benefit of the mushrooms, I would have heard that, and I would not be remembering it, 20, 25 years later, whatever it is, from the 1970s to now. I would not recall that event, but the mushrooms, I guess, made me just ultra sensitive to something really positive in my environment that was fleeting.
Right.
It was there and gone. And that little boy probably has a job as a lawyer now. And
Oh,
that
yeah.
older woman is probably gone, you know?
Unfortunately,
But
yeah.
it's fixed in my brain, man.
Those people will never know that to this day you hold that memory.
Yeah.
And not only do you hold that memory probably more so than they do at this point, but you have assigned such a greater feeling to it that it's not just the memory of it happening where it sticks in your mind because what you saw visually or what you heard was memorable, but instead it was the entire situation and the feeling that came from it that is so memorable about it. And you experienced that probably in the same capacity that those two did.
Well, I wonder what they thought of that. I mean, if there was any way that that boy could recall even that day with his grandma, and I don't really know that it was his grandmother, I assume it was.
Right.
Does he remember that that even took place?
Yeah.
Much less that little throwaway remark about the crabs.
Right.
I'll bet you, though, that he feeds to this day on the knowledge of the love she felt for him. And I shared in it just really peripherally, just by chance, by walking by. Mm-hmm. That was the power to me of the mushrooms in that moment.
Wow. There's a couple people on campus right now. Maybe not right now, but a couple days ago.
There have been?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
And what they're doing right now is that they're supporting the legalization of shrooms.
That's a big deal in many communities across the country now, because partly it's perceived to have great medicinal value for the treatment of depression and anxiety and alcoholism.
The term, I believe, was microdosing.
Well, that's one way to take this stuff, but another way is with a psychiatrist or some sort of therapist to experience your trauma and reformulate it with the new insights that the psilocybin provides you. And then in that recategorization of the trauma, it isn't the burden that it was before. That, they say, is the miracle of not just psilocybin, but ecstasy.
Oh, yeah.
Is another drug that apparently has its power, LSD as well. Mm-hmm. And they're thinking that of those three, it's probably more likely that psilocybin will get the nod from the federal government.
As a natural...
Yeah, because it is natural.
Instead of a lab-made kind of... Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we still got to get through weed first, federally. So
that's true, yeah.
I mean, but the kind of what you're saying about the trauma, it reminds me of our last episode 10. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, check that out if you can. If you haven't already. But
on YouTube and soon to be just everywhere. Maybe billboards. Inherently human.
We'll be super famous.
Won't be able to get away from it.
But we kind of had the discussion of how you and your brother are vastly different people because at some point you were able to self-realize and change who you were because you're able to kind of look at the situations in your life, the trauma, everything else, and then be able to think about it rationally.
Right. I don't necessarily want to put that in contrast to him, but that is what happened to me.
Right. Yeah. That's your story.
Right.
Obviously, your brother, we can't speak for him, but that's how you figured it out in your life.
Yeah. Trauma in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this idea that shrooms and facing these traumas or facing these issues in your everyday life with this outside perspective allows you to see everything from an entirely different angle. You know, everything becomes different. You have to think about it in new ways in order to kind of cope and come to terms with what has happened. And especially with shrooms, I mean, I've had minimal experience. I've had one time.
Oh, really? That was the only time you ever did that?
The only time I've ever done it.
Yeah.
So far. And so, the way that I felt after it was all done, I felt like everything in my life had come to a point where it's not that bad, I guess. I mean, I don't have a whole lot of trauma in my life.
No.
I'm fortunate in that way. But I came out of this experience feeling euphoric. You know, I wasn't just glad. I wasn't just joyful. I wasn't excited. I was euphoric, truly and fully. And that mindset carried for a long time, where I was able to take situations that had happened in my past and either forgive those who I blame for it or forgive myself for having done it, just because I had this better place in my head and I had these new perspectives and I had this kind of, not divinity, but this new thought process of spirituality and how everything is interconnected, and no matter what happens, everything will reset itself and be okay in the end.
Now, you're using the past tense. Are you saying that those feelings have faded now, or have they kept with you? Like you talked about some negative experience that you had where it required you to forgive another actor in that drama, whatever it was, and you did forgive this person. Is that individual still forgiven, and do you still feel better about it now?
So what it allowed me to do is feel myself far more in the present than in the past. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is that anything that had happened to me in the past, anything that might have been difficult or anything like that, no longer matters.
And that's true to this day.
True to this day.
Wow.
That it's, you know what, it's happened. What's going to happen is going to happen.
So it is actually, it did heal you. some.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Even just one time.
Yeah.
Because I guess the way that I think about it is that I was with a very great group of friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I support wholesomeness. So
Say more. That's an odd
wholesomeness-
statement. What?
so wholesomeness
How do you mean that?
is, I guess, the best way that I can put it is support of yourself and others in the most positive way possible.
So that includes affection, trust, communication.
Kindness, respect,
Yeah.
everything.
Right. Those are beautiful elements. That is what relationships are, or
Exactly.
really ought to be.
And so bringing it all together, the
Nice.
support that I try and do, the love I feel for my friends, the feelings that I get from helping someone, the relationships I have from people that I come in contact with every day, all of these things and how I feel about it, I pertain to wholesomeness.
Okay.
And so-
Okay. That's what you're describing. That is your definition of wholesomeness.
Exactly.
Okay, I was thinking, oh, he has milk for breakfast and has the food pyramid here with lots of good protein and grains.
Oh yeah, healthy as fuck.
Yeah, wholesomeness. But you're saying something entirely different. than that.
Entirely. And having that mindset and then coming into shrooms and then having those to expand upon each other has allowed me to think immensely more positive about how I view life personally. I understand that things are going to happen in my life, things are going to happen in everyone else's lives, and that's just how it's going to be. So long as you're happy with who you are now as a person and you aren't hurting anybody else by being that person, then by all means be that person and be okay with that, you know? There's so many things to get us down. There's so many things that will tear us as people physically, emotionally, psychologically, all these things. And a lot of it stems from things that we've done in the past.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm not saying you have to do shrooms to understand this. No. I'm saying that if you confront that past and you accept it for what it is, and you come to terms with who you are as a present person and all the people that you support and support you in turn, then who cares what happened? That's the past. You're more than welcome to forgive those who you need to forgive, either that be others or yourself, and then move on to this new present life where everything around you is for you and others, you know? And then you can focus what's happening now for how it's going to be in the future.
And that may be much more difficult for some people.
Absolutely.
Than it has been for you, probably.
Mm-hmm. I understand that in my life I've had a lot of privileges, I've had a lot of advantages.
Because partly you have some it sounds, and I don't know this directly, but it seems to me that you have a very supportive family.
Absolutely. My parents have been very supportive of me in everything that I do, really. I feel like they've done a spectacular job with me and my siblings.
Hear that, folks? Mr. and Mrs. DeBoard, you should send them this as a Christmas card. This is a little clip that you just said right there.
All of that.
Yeah.
This whole episode where we talk about shrooms the entire time.
Maybe not the whole episode.
I mean, hopefully they listen to this. I really hope they do. But, no, I've obviously had a lot of advantages and privileges in my life that lead me to a more simple way of thinking. But, I mean, I guess in the end, what I'm trying to convey is that nothing is permanent, I guess. I mean, obviously there are things that are permanent. Let me rephrase that. I can't rephrase that.
Well,
I'm so lost in this train of thought.
Well, in
that I'm
the
trying
feelings, it sounds like you're almost overwhelmed by the feelings associated with it, and some of that comes from the real solidity of the family life you come from, which allowed you the freedom to trust not only those around you, but yourself. I mean, you were given a very healthy sense of your own insights, and you trust them, and that's a blessing in life. And when I look at you and I see the way you behave, and I see your response to people on this podcast, the way you describe your relationships, and when we've had people that we've interviewed, you have a generous way of listening. And I know that in the last episode we talked about respect, and that's probably what I mean.
Yeah.
That you are a generous person. You are a giver when it comes to accepting other people as they are and letting them speak for themselves, and just being open to that.
I appreciate that sentiment.
Sure.
That actually means a lot. So
Good.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So I guess for everyone who's listening, Jim is a amazingly supportive person, a great friend, and exactly who I think of with this idea of wholesomeness is
Wow,
that
man.
going through this entire life, and now you're at this point and you're still going with positivity and strength in not only your personal relationships but in your own life. And I think it takes a lot to do that, and you've
Yeah.
in your life and the things that you've told me about your family and your brother and your parents and all that, and you've been able to overcome that. And I think that's huge. And if some of our listeners feel that they've been through a similar situation like yours or even like mine, and knowing that you can still come out on the other end as well as you have, I think that's very encouraging for a lot of people. And I hope that whoever's listening, if you feel that you're kind of in this situation, it gets better, and everything, you can come out of this. What are your thoughts?
Well, I wanted to bring up something that probably should have mentioned much earlier, and we forget even to mention the name of the podcast sometimes.
Oh, right.
Inherently human. But Aiden is 20, I'm 72, and so some of what we're talking about is based on those generations, I guess
Yeah.
it's really only one generation, that separate us in time, but we seem to have arrived at a place in our respective lives where we agree on some really basic, fundamental, positive things, and that is great.
I think that's a good, positive, wholesome note to leave off on the 45-minute mark.
I think it's about 45, and so I think we better say goodbye.
Well, this has been a very wholesome, very great episode in my own biased opinion as to what we do here. But
Even though we appear to be advocating drugs, but still. Well, hey.
I'm not advocating anything.
Thousands of years the psilocybin has been in use for precisely these purposes. Anyway, I'm not trying to editorialize.
Yeah, no,
We're just trying to be interesting.
you're more than welcome to have your own opinion. We're just on a podcast.
That's right. That's right.
And this podcast has been Inherently Human, episode 11. I'm Aiden DeBoard.
Jim Newman.
And have yourselves a very wholesome day, filled with positivity and support.
Well said.